Welcome to the Not On My Watch podcast, where real-life issues facing the family and the church are addressed with bold and uncompromising truth. It's time to reject the mediocrity of the day, live courageously in the face of danger, and declare, Not On My Watch. Here are your hosts, Jeff and Rochelle Ferguson.
Hey, welcome to the Not On My Watch podcast. We're Jeff and Rochelle, and we're excited to be with you. So much going on with Not On My Watch. Can we take a moment just to we won't bore you. We're getting right in.
I was hoping we would, because we just came off.
Bore people? Or
I was hoping we would not bore people. I was hoping we'd give an update. So there's been some exciting things happening. Just we're able to visit some churches lately in Madison, Indiana, Wednesday night. In a church in Florida,
Kentucky before that,
Louisville,
and then
before that, Lakeland, Florida on Sunday. And I tell you what, it's so fun meeting new people. It's so fun meeting people who say, "Hey, I'm subscribed to the podcast, watch the podcast." My favorite part is just being able to talk to people and even watching you pray with people right there at our table. Who are walking through things that are impacting. Can I just say most people?
Most for people. Real. And I really do. I love it. I'm learning a whole lot, even just about the church in general. And God's raising up people.
He is.
And I think that's really exciting. It's really exciting to go to different churches and see, like we were in inner city, and then we were in rural, and then we were in Florida, which I don't know. What's Florida? All of the above, right? So
let me just say, what's Florida? I'll answer that. It was warm. It was awesome. Shorts and flip-flops. That's all I gotta
so that
say.
Was a benefit to there.
Yes.
So, I think this is not what this podcast is about, but I'm just going to throw a little side note in. Have your kids be a part of your life.
Yeah.
Like our kids are jumping in, a part of the ministry, and
they're having a blast.
And they're doing a great job.
Yes.
And so, and even with kind of just even a lot of changes in our own personal life, they're so cool. So, but more information, go to our website, www.notonmywatch.co, sign up for our mailing list, find out about it. And stay tuned for more updates. But here we're jumping into the podcast today. We're talking, this is a parenting type podcast, parenting, grandparenting, but really this would benefit anybody who's wanting to influence others. It doesn't even have to be the next generation, just others. But really we're talking about how to raise worshipers, how to influence other people to be worshipers of Christ. And we're not talking about a song here.
We're not talking about a song. We're not talking about even a place we go to. We're talking about...
Or a posture, like hallelujah. No, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, we are talking about a lifestyle. And I love when you said that, how to raise worshipers, because as I read about parenting and hear people talk, parents are they're struggling. They want to know, how can my child be on fire for Christ? How can they? I hear a lot of parents talking about, what do I do? My child's apathetic. They just don't seem to care about the Lord. So what do I do? This is on the mind of a lot of parents.
I hope it's on the mind of a lot of parents. I really hope it is, because.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. There is definitely a group of people who are concerned about this. I wish more people would be concerned.
Yes. No, you're right. I would agree with you.
I wish everyone was so concerned with how to transmit their faith. I wish that consumed us.
Yeah.
I know God's put a burden on me for that. And that sounds like a negative term, like a burden on me. I care about it. I care about my own children walking and knowing Christ, walking in the faith, living out their faith, being a worshiper. But I care about that for the generations. I hope we care about it.
Yes. And I think this episode really hits on that. Okay, again, we're not talking about a church service to go to. We're not talking about
a song to listen to.
A song to listen to. We're talking about a lifestyle, and the lifestyle of worship really has to permeate our home, really has to permeate everything who we are.
Yes.
And so how do we raise worshipers? Going right in, I think number one, they will worship like you do. Your children will worship like you do. And once again, we're not talking about worshiping, during a song, but they will live a life of worship like you live a life of worship. And I think right here we're hitting on is modeling. They will do what they see in you. You said this a couple weeks ago. I think we were walking, and you said this, and I like it. Kids will not replicate who we say we are. Our kids will replicate who we actually are. And so we can say we're one thing and tell our kids to do another, but they will replicate who we actually are. The same thing with worship. They will not replicate us, this is what you should do, or this is how you should live the Christian life. They're going to replicate what they actually see in us.
Yeah.
Which is exciting if we as parents are modeling a lifestyle of worship in every season of life. And so if we're worshipers, if we're on fire, we're going to transmit that to the next generation. So
this podcast is being filmed in March.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're listening at some other time of year, I just given you some context, okay? And the thing about March, I love March for a lot of reasons. It starts getting warmer and all of these kind of things. But I love March because it's March Madness. Like, I love basketball. I love watching it. Do the brackets.
By the way, it's time to fill out the brackets coming up.
If you're watching Selection Sunday is on the horizon, right? Okay, so I love it. And I love it because I'm actually a fan. I'm a fan of. Really, I'm a Butler basketball fan. Okay.
And if you have watched the podcast for at least 2 episodes,
I feel like they get quite the shout outs.
You know this, which is great.
That's okay. And they still listen. Thank you. I don't know if they're going to make the tourney this year. We had a little slide there, and that is a different
But
episode.
We are praying to that end.
But we are praying, okay? We're on the bubble, right? Okay, so we're on the bubble. But anyways, okay, so why do I bring this up? What's the point? So I'm a fan of Butler, but it is not enough for me to just be a fan.
Yeah.
I want to influence my whole family to be a fan.
And you have.
And I've won them over.
Can I just say, so I grew up in Michigan State fan my whole life, and I would consider myself a Michigan State fan, but I'll say this, I have more Butler gear than I have Michigan State
because I do the shopping for the family, right?
And now I'm starting to say our team or us or we're winning.
Yeah, see,
that's
you are fully over.
It's
okay.
Telltale.
And
so you are a Butler evangelist.
Yes, I am. Okay. No, but I see this happening. My kids are literally, I'm sometimes hey, don't yell at the TV, and I'm I'm yelling at the TV, right? And they begin to watch the basketball games like I do.
Yes.
They're in it. They're checking the stats like I do. They're watching the pregame, what's going to happen and the percentages like I do. And I think, this is just part of life. I know sometimes we don't like this. I know that sometimes that this can be a thing we don't like, but it actually should be something that spurs us on.
Yeah. That
we do like, is that our kids, those we're around, those we're influencing, they're going to start worshiping like we do. They're going to, and I'm not talking about mimicking us. I just want to say this again. I feel like I've said it a bunch, but I just think we get confused on what worship is.
Yes.
It's not a 3-set song with the fourth one being, longer.
Because anybody can go to a service and raise their hands.
Oh, I'm not impressed with that. No, that's not what it is.
Again, we're talking about a lifestyle of worship.
We're talking about living for Jesus. And our kids are looking to see. And so this should encourage us. Guess what? Encourage us to be more like Christ.
Yes.
And it should also encourage us to realize hey, I don't want to compartmentalize my worship to a 15-minute set on a Sunday morning, or a 15-minute time, or a 30-minute time on a Monday morning for devotions.
Yes.
It's a part of our whole life.
And so we see this. I saw this. I caught our daughter doing this, our youngest daughter playing Barbies. And as she was playing Barbies, I was listening to her dialogue, and she was talking about God's opening doors. Yeah. And she's talking with the Barbies, and she said, man, she started singing, started worshiping, but she was our kids talk, and they mirror how we talk and how we do, how we're believing God for things is how they're believing God for things. How we talk about God and does he heal and does he do miracles? That's what our expectation begins to be seen in them. And so that's what I saw even as they were playing Barbies. We say, oh, it's cute, it's funny, but it's all of life.
It was cute.
It was cute. But it's all of life.
Real. Yes.
It's real. And so you're exactly right. Whatever we embody, whatever we live, whatever we exude is going to be caught, regardless of what we teach. Teaching is important. We'll get to that. But our behavior, we cannot underestimate our modeling. Our
Absolutely.
Just very presence. When you walk into the room, what happens? And so that's huge.
Huge. So how do we want to raise worshipers? First of all, we got to be worshipers, right? Like we've got to be people who Jesus is all a part of literally the daily life, okay? But number two, I think this is so important. Worship is not a private encounter solely. Meaning worship is not just something that it's between me and God, and the community doesn't matter. The people around me doesn't matter. I just don't feel like that's found in Scripture at all. Are there absolute times when you shut yourself off and pray alone to your Father? Yes. Are there times to read the Bible, contemplate, worship, pray on your own? Yes, absolutely. But guess what? That's not the rule of thumb all the time.
Yeah. I would contend if our faith, if our lives of worship is just private, it won't be transmitted to the next generation. Our kids need to see us doing that. Our kids need to worship, need to live lives of faith with us.
Can I even jump in there and say it's not just our kids, our spouses.
Oh, yeah.
The people we influence. I know like some of you are like, oh, you've gone crazy. Our coworkers.
Yes.
Now that doesn't mean we sit there and like, right in front of our coworkers. Okay, like.
Shout to the Lord.
No. What we're talking about is living your life of following Christ out in public. So I went to the grocery store today. We've been out of town. We had nothing, right? Okay, so I literally was trying to be very quick. I have a lot of things to do today. So I was like going through, and the checker outer gentleman, the cashier, that's his name.
That's his name.
We were talking, he's like, you seem like you're in a rush. I'm like, I am, I'm sorry. And he's like, oh no, you got a lot of things to do. And we ended up talking about the conversation. This man has been married for 40 years. He's in his 70s. And we just start talking about the Lord. He's like, you know him too? I was like, yeah, I know him. And so we start, and he's like, oh, you're blessed. We were just talking about these things. Everything we do, I know, like, oh, we got to always talk about, yes, if the Lord has done something for you, you want to tell people about it. So, I guess I'm just going to go back to the butler. I'm sorry, but go there. It's March Madness. Here's the deal. I don't want to shut myself off into a room and watch Butler by myself. Will I if nobody else is going to? Sure. Do I want to? No. Like, I want everybody in the family to put on their Butler t-shirts and to sit down and find their spot on the couch and turn it up really loud, and then maybe like, kids, be quiet. I can't hear the commentators. And, I don't know.
Only mom gets to yell.
Pass the pretzel. Yeah, only mom gets to yell at the refs. Okay. Like,
sorry, we didn't practice.
That went too far, Jeff. Okay. No, but like it's a community thing. Worshiping God is a community thing. Yes. Are there times when I am by myself reading the Bible and praying? Yes. But if that is the extent of my worship, then I'm not bringing people along.
Yeah.
I'm not showing. Who's going to show my girls how to pray?
Yeah.
Who's going to show them how to read the Bible? Who's going to show them how to worship throughout the day? Me. Like, that's our job. That's your job.
Yes.
And I know that the objection is, well, nobody showed me. I had to figure it out on my own. Guess what? Do better. Don't make it hard for your kids. If nobody showed you how to worship God,
be the pioneer.
Yes.
Be the pioneer.
Be the pioneer. I love it.
Be the pioneer who says, you know what, man, this wasn't modeled for me, and I don't know if I'm gonna get it right. What does that mean? But anyway, you know what? Just blaze the trail for your kids. Guess what? You are creating a spiritual legacy.
Yes.
And talk to your kids about that. Talk
Yes.
to you, like, you know what? No one modeled it for me, but I'm going to model it for you. And some even may say that's a good objection. Some may also say, well, there are just seasons that are rough. How do we worship in seasons that are so difficult?
Oh my goodness. Grab the blanket and a cup of tea because we got a lot to say on that. No, I'm just
Let's
kidding.
sit down, or if you're driving, just
pull on over. No, just kidding.
I would contend
that's when your faith is made.
I would contend that in those in the mountaintop seasons,
anybody can worship.
Anybody can worship. Well, it's awesome. In the difficult seasons, I would contend is where your kids, where those around you will be taught maybe the most.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
And here's why, is because in the midst of adversity or whatever, a difficult season in your life, as you continue to not waver in your faith, as you continue to cling to God in the face of legitimate doubt, as you continue to do that, as you continue to say, you know what, I can't explain what I'm going through, but I'm gonna love Jesus, I'm gonna worship in the midst of it. It's in those moments where you get to model maybe the most profound truth, and that is when it's most difficult, you're not wavering.
Well, I don't think it's just modeling. You're literally teaching your kids what to do when adversity strikes, what to do when hardship comes.
Yes.
And trouble's going to come. I mean, Jesus told us in Matthew, in this world, you will have trouble, but take heart. I've overcome the world. And so what do we do in seasons of difficulty when we do have trouble? Our kids are depending on us to show them how to do it because they're going to find trouble. Trouble will find them. I don't know anybody exempt from trouble. And if you are, let me know. I'd love to meet you. But I don't know anybody about that.
And can I encourage, and I know maybe it's not only parents, but I do want to encourage parents, don't sugarcoat the trouble. Don't glaze over the trouble and say, oh, everything's fine. It's not that bad. Have you read the Psalms? Have you read what David said? Have you read some of David's prayers?
Oh, man.
He was honest before God. Our kids need to see us when there's difficulty that comes at us or we're going through something. They need to see us being honest about that, but also in the midst of that, pointing to God's goodness, pointing to God's faithfulness. That's when their resilience and their spiritual resilience will be built up.
Absolutely. Okay, so what's the whole point of this? Guess what? Our goal, if you're watching, if you're a not on my watch parent, if you're a not on my watch grandparent, if you're a not on my watch leader who cares about the next generation, you're wanting to raise a generation of worshipers.
Yes.
And so guess what? We got to show it. We got to live it. We got to teach it. We got to model it. And you know what? We got to bring them in. This is not just a me and God type relationship. This is all of us. So
as we were talking real quick, I remember, what did the disciples ask Jesus? Jesus, teach us to what? To pray. It was as they were seeing him, as they were living life with him, this should be what our kids ask us. Teach us. And they are asking us. So hope this has been beneficial.
Yes.
Hope this has encouraged. Hey, share this with somebody, because you know what? We don't want to raise cultural good kids or moral kids. We want to raise warriors, worshipers for Christ. So hey, go ahead and share this. We're so excited to see you right here, right next time on the next episode of the Not on My Watch podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Not on My Watch podcast. You are a watchman for this time and hour. Don't forget to subscribe and rate this podcast wherever you listen. If you haven't already, head on over to our website, www.notonmywatch.co, for more resources from Jeff and Rochelle. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time on the next episode. But until then, keep watchful.